AC/DC, not one of Senator Mccain. My favorite songs is 32 minutes after the hour here on the Imus program. Somebody asked Glenn Beck, I think, asked Sarah Palin, who was her favorite founding father, and she said all of them. Here's mine, Senator John McCain. Good morning, Senator McCain. That's a good one, man.
I guess my favorite tunes authenticate that belief, huh?
Well, no. Did you actually pick these?
Yeah, of course.
They're very good. So, well, except ABBA.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody hates ABBA, but everybody listens to ABBA. Why is that? Why is it that they're the most popular group ever besides the Beatles, and yet everybody, they're terrible, terrible. I never listen. Somebody must have bought their records for the last 30 years.
Very good point. And Rhinestone Cowboy, Glenn Campbell?
I love Glenn Campbell. He lives in Arizona, and he's a fine man. He's had his troubles, as you know. All of us have in life.
So Scott Brown thanked you specifically Tuesday night. What's that all about?
Well, I got to know Scott in the 2008 campaign. He was one of the only Massachusetts legislators that supported me. We I kind of a chemistry there. He's a veteran. He served 30 years in the Guard and Reserve. He's got a great sense of humor. Anyway, he came and we talked for a long time. And he said, "Everybody says I don't have a chance," and I said, "I think you do. I think you do." And I supported him in every possible way. But he was more than generous in his remarks about me. And by the way, could I mention, Bernie and I were just talking, I thought that moment with his daughters and the kind of goofy thing, I thought that was pretty neat. The fact that he interacted with his daughters and like that, and some in the liberal left are panning the guy. I mean, isn't that nuts? Have they no sense of humor?
Apparently not, no. So
yeah, I mean,
the irony, though, is what great friends you and Senator Kennedy were. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to lose, the Democrats to lose a seat, well, anywhere else, but to lose Senator Kennedy's seat in Massachusetts, I mean, man, something happened here. What happened?
Well, obviously, the major factor was health care. And the interesting thing about it being Senator Kennedy's seat is that the one thing Senator Kennedy would have done, whether you happen to agree with his philosophy or not, is he would have immediately reached across the aisle to Republicans and at least gotten a number of them to say, okay, we'll sit down together, we'll negotiate, and we'll come up with a proposal that we can pass through the Congress that's bipartisan. By the way, no major reform has ever passed the Congress of the United States without bipartisan support. So what the president did and what Harry Reid did was exactly the opposite. We got 60 votes. We don't have to really consider anything that they want, and they rammed it through, and they paid a very heavy price for it. And in order to get the last vote or two, they resorted to this unsavory Chicago-style sausage making, which amounted to bribery. It amounts to bribery when you tell a senator you can have hundreds of millions of dollars for your state, and the other states are going to pay for it. That is outrageous. And, I've found in Arizona, in the town hall meetings I've been having, people are as mad about the process that they went through, this vote purchasing, as they are about the product. A lot of people don't understand a 2,400-page masterpiece, but they understood what was going on there. There's a small example done. There's 330,000 Arizonans in my state that are under a program called Medicare Advantage. It's more expensive, but it gives seniors more choices. The other Senator Nelson from Florida put in a provision that exempted some $4 billion worth of Medicare Advantage enrollees from any further costs. Well, who's going to pay for that? Who's going to pay for that? So the process was the worst that I've ever seen, particularly from an administration that 8 times the president said, I'll have C-SPAN in the room and we'll have the American people watch the negotiations.
Talking with Senator John McCain here in the Imus Morning program. I'm not one of those people. To put this next question in context.
Sure.
I like the president, and I hope he does well.
I do too.
Because if he does well, the country does well.
Absolutely.
However, when he says in the wake of this Scott Brown victory in Massachusetts, well, we weren't communicating with the American people. I'm paraphrasing him, but that's essentially what he said. And he gave over 150 interviews. He made either comments or over 400 either comments or speeches. The American people, here's what they're tired of, and we're tired of that kind of nonsense and jive. Why not just say what happened?
I think the first thing, and I've been guilty of this myself, when you suffer defeat is denial. I think it's a human characteristic, but I also think that maybe he could look at history and recognize that Ronald Reagan took a shellacking in the 1982 elections and came back to re-election and one of the most successful presidents in history. President Clinton lost out on the proposal that we became known as Hillary Care, and recovered. And the way that President Clinton did it was that he moved to the center and started addressing issues in a more bipartisan fashion and became more inclusive. This White House has not done anything of any possible significance with the Republican Party. Hubris is a terrible disease, and but this is also one of the smartest presidents we have ever had, and I think that they will and can make an adjustment. I hope they do, because the country has never been in worse shape in my lifetime.
Did he ever talk to you?
No.
You ever call? What happened if you called him? Could you get through? I guess you could.
I talked to the vice president. In fact, I talked to the vice president short a time ago as yesterday about the situation in Iraq, because we've known each other very, very well. But again, I hope that the president understands that we have to put action along with rhetoric. I mean, a good example is the president said that we're at war the other day after the near tragedy of Christmas, but then they send this guy to the would-be bomber, to a trial in civilian court and give him a lawyer. He lawyers up, they give him his Miranda rights, and we don't get any more intelligence about who helped him and what the plot was. You see my point? Where there's got to be some action that matches the rhetoric.
When you talk to Biden, Vice President Biden, do you say to him, y'all ought to move to the middle to get this country straightened out?
Yeah, but
no, it doesn't sound. No, do you or don't you? I mean,
well, I think the vice president, who I happen to have a very good personal relationship with, understands that. He was around here a long time. I don't know who, and there's no reason why I should know, who wields the real levers of power and influence in the White House, and so I know that the vice president works very hard. But
I kind of got irritable there, didn't I? Like you usually do me. Usually, you know how you lose your temper and you snap at me. So I apologize for that.
What you just did to Charles was unforgivable. Charles, open and close that can whenever you want to.
Thank you, Senator.
Well, he will. He doesn't. then he'll cite you're providing him with the ability to do that, or endorsement rather. Searching for a word there.
Well, listen. Very briefly, I still think that if a president gets back onto the economy and jobs and trying to, and people in my state are very, very concerned about the spending, that they really believe we have committed generational theft by this incredible, massive deficit, and earmarking and pork barreling and corruption goes on here that really Americans still find terribly distasteful. And finally, could I say that things are going to get tough in Afghanistan before they get better. I think in March you're going to see an increase in casualties, I'm sorry to say, but I do think we've got the right strategy and the right leadership and the right resources.
I'm talking with Senator John McCain here in the Imus Morning Program, 19 till the hour. You and Cindy McCain appear in ads in California endorsing gay marriage.
We have
Cindy and Megan, rather. Not you. That wouldn't make any sense, would it? Well, it might.
We have spirited discussions about various issues in our family, and I respect the views of members of my family. I have always believed that the sanctity of marriage is between one man and one woman, and that's my position, and it's always been that my position, that I respect that marriage, the institution of marriage, should be one man and one woman only.
I didn't ask me, but I support and endorse the philosophy of Kinky Friedman. That is, I support gay marriage on the basis that they have the right to be as unhappy as the rest, as heterosexual couples generally are. So,
I've heard you mention that in the past.
In Haiti, Senator McCain,
yep.
The military, U.S. military, well, if it weren't for them, but they're just doing, as they always do, a stupendous, spectacular job.
That's true. That's true.
And my question is about going into our relationship with them, or the politics there, and all of that. How does this get solved 6 months or a year from now?
I don't know the answer to that, because it's the most dysfunctional and, not surprisingly, the poorest in every way country in our hemisphere. They've been subjected to people like Papa Doc and Baby Doc and Aristide, and just the incredible corruption and the billions in foreign aid that have been wasted in corruption because of lousy government. Now, the president, I understand, is improvement over his predecessor, although largely, obviously, missing MIA in this situation, and maybe that's understandable. But unless you get good government, you're not going to have a change, a fundamental change from what exists in these vast areas of poverty and shacks and terrible, terrible destitution. Governments matter. The same problem exists in Africa. The best efforts of wonderful and dedicated people, but unless their governments are better, more responsive to the people, and less corrupt, our ability to make a permanent change is extremely limited. And all of us are proud of the outpouring by all of our citizens in behalf of the people who are afflicted by this tragedy. Acts of heroism are being performed every minute, and we're grateful. But if we want to see significant fundamental change, then you have to have better governments, a lot better governments.
16 till the hour, talking with Senator John McCain here in the Imus Women program. Mark Halperin and John Heilemann wrote a book called Game Change that they purport is a behind-the-scenes look at the Obama campaign, the McCain campaign, the Edwards campaign, the whatever. Did you read it?
No, I have to move on. I'm proud of my campaign. I'm proud of Sarah Palin. I'm proud of the people who were with me. A guy who stood fifth from the bottom of his class at the Naval Academy can get the nomination of the party of Abraham Lincoln and Theodore Roosevelt and Ronald Reagan is a modern miracle. And so I have to move on. There are too many things. The folks in Arizona, we have 17% real unemployment. Americans are dying in Afghanistan. I just have to move on and understand that I lost, and whenever you lose, then, people have a tendency to criticize. I understand that.
Mike Lupica, the sports writer and novelist, asked me, I thought it was a pretty good question. He said, either party said, who's the next great leader in the tradition of say, Reagan or some of these other folks out there?
It's not apparent who that will be, but I'm happy that we have governors all over that are outstanding. We have young members of Congress that are moving up in both House and Senate. I think that we're going through the period that we went through after Jimmy Carter was elected, and that is that 1,000 flowers are blooming out there, and Republicans are going to make a choice. But we Republicans also have to understand why we lost so badly in 2006 and 2008, and that's because we let spending get completely out of control, and we betrayed our conservative base in that respect, and we can't make those mistakes again. But there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of young governors. Of course, there's Sarah Palin. There's some great leaders here emerging in the Senate, and Scott Brown obviously is one who will emerge on the American political horizon. He's going to be watched. He's coming into the office, by the way, in about an hour and a half, and we're going to spend time together.
Sarah Palin's going to campaign for you in Arizona there?
Yep, she's coming out. It'll be a little trip down memory lane there. I'm always pleased to spend time with her.
Are you going to get reelected?
Oh, I'm working at it. You never
I
take
know
anything
that,
for granted.
So, is there anything I can do to help you? Or?
Come on out, and it'd be fun. I mean,
No,
look, I love campaigning, and maybe you can. Obviously, people in Arizona still love you, as they do all over the country, despite your bad habits and cruelties to Charles.
Well, I'm not making any campaign appearances, but I mean, I am willing to, as long as you're ahead, even though I love you to death, why, you got to stay ahead. So.
Well, I noticed when I was seeking the nomination of the party.
Senator, you hear what he is saying? That if you falter at all, he
No,
abandons you.
That is
John McCain.
That is not true. That's a lie.
Oh, my God.
Charles, we have seen this movie before.
Yes, we have, Senator.
I didn't have to check a poll. All I had to do was know what Don was saying about me, whether I was down or up.
You got it.
Thank you, Senator McCain.
Thank you.
Senator
Bye-bye.
John McCain here at the I'm Swaying program, 12 till the hour.